Alrighty, let's kick off today with an obvious choice, dark matter, and just dark energy as a whole. Alright, let's see if I can try and make this crystal clear, or as much as my artsy-fartsy brain can. So we see some effects that we can't explain with our current understanding of physics. So we know something must be there to cause that effect. We give these observed effects, or I guess their causes, a placeholder label. Dark matter and dark energy. Nothing more, nothing less. You have to note that these names do not imply that dark matter must turn out to be a form of matter, or dark energy must be a form of energy. It only implies that the observed effect is as if something matter-like, or energy-like, in the case of dark energy, were acting. What's really causing these effects? Welcome to one of the mysteries of the universe, everybody. Alternatively, our current understanding of physics could be way off. But since we keep testing it and finding it in accordance with experimental results that seem unlikely, well, unless physics behaves totally differently elsewhere. Once again, don't look at me, I didn't take physics in high school. I took every social science course I could instead for a reason. Despite making up about 95% of the universe, dark matter and dark energy remain one of the biggest puzzles in modern cosmology. To be specific, dark matter makes up about 27% of the universe's mass energy content. Yet we don't know exactly what it is or how it interacts with regular matter aside from its gravitational effects. It's like a silent artist sculpting our cosmos. We can't observe it directly, but we do see its influence on the way galaxies rotate and cluster. The gravitational effects of dark matter are most easily observed in the outer regions of galaxies, where stars move at speeds that aren't possible unless there is more matter present than we can actually see. Another proof is when light from distant galaxies pass through regions filled with dark matter, and the light is bent in a phenomenon known as gravitational lensing, which is something I know I've talked about before. Dark energy is no less of a mystery, making up 68% of the universe's mass energy content. It's a force that appears to work against gravity on a cosmic scale. So if we're gonna go back in time, back to the 1920s, Edwin Hubble's observations revealed an expanding universe, with galaxies moving away from each other. Fast forward to 1998, studies showed this expansion wasn't slowing down as expected. Instead, it was accelerating. Dark energy was the name for the force causing this acceleration. Is your brain spinning yet? Don't worry folks, we're just getting started. Here's something else we don't know. The origins of fast radio bursts, otherwise known as FRBs. What the heck are they? Well, they're like the universe's camera flash, illuminating the universe with flashes of energy that last milliseconds, and were first identified in 2007. Technically, the Parkes Observatory in Australia made the first detection of an FRB as it blasted out of the small Magellanic Cloud, a satellite galaxy of the Milky Way, back in 2001. However, this event would not be discovered until 2007, when astrophysicist Duncan Lorimer and colleagues found it in archival data from the observatory. Yeah, sorry to get all confusing again, it couldn't be helped. I like being specific. A key feature of FRBs is their dispersion sweep, which is similar to radial pulsars. Basically, and I'm gonna try and make this as simple as possible, they send a variety of radio frequencies that arrive at different times because of the way they interact with the interstellar medium. The origin of FRBs has always been uncertain and probably always will be. Proposed candidates include magnetars, which are rapidly rotating neutron stars with powerful magnetic fields, merging faint, dense stellar remnants called white dwarfs, collapsing neutron stars or blitzers, and colliding galaxies. Yeah, there's a lot. The initial excitement was followed by skepticism when a similar dispersion pattern was observed in multiple locations. In 2013, 4 additional FRBs were discovered that shared key features with the previous bursts, but had even higher dispersion measures, suggesting they traveled even further. This discovery suggested the universe could be full of these flashes. So, until an FRB can be traced to a specific galaxy or detected across different wavelengths, the full story behind them will remain a mystery. Some things are certain about FRBs, however, like for one, their sources must be highly energetic themselves, and as they travel, these short-lived radio wave blasts can gather information about cosmic environments, like the clouds of interstellar gas they pass through, which makes studying FRBs a pressing concern for astronomers who want to map the universe. Just how powerful are these buggers? Well, at their sources, FRBs have a lot of energy. Like in a millisecond, some FRBs can blast out as much energy as the sun emits in 3 Earth days. Because they come from billions of light years away, however, FRBs lose energy as they travel, so when they reach Earth, they're much less powerful. When radio telescopes spot FRBs from Earth, the strength of the signal is similar to a mobile phone signal from the moon. Number 5, is there life beyond Earth? Now, while today we're exclusively talking about NASA's perspective on things, I'm a firm believer that aliens are out there somewhere, possibly poking their head near Earth from, time to time, watching us be, well, idiots. Every week, it's getting a lot easier to believe in aliens. If you haven't been keeping up with all the government whistleblower stuff, I'd recommend looking into it like ASAP. Especially the David Grush whistleblower reports. Easily some of the most credible reporting that's ever happened when it comes to this out-of-the-world stuff. No matter how improbable the origin of life on Earth may have been, and I promise I will get to that, there should, in theory, be many other living planets in the universe. Look, there are about 100 billion galaxies in the observable universe, each containing tens of billions of stars. Many of these stars have planets, so even if life only forms on one planet out of every trillion, the number of life-bearing planets in the universe should be, according to my calculations, a lot. I wasn't good at math in high school, and I'm still not good at it now, but trust me, the science says there should be quite a few. Feel free to do the math for yourself. In our own solar system, a few locations appear to be hospitable to microbial life. The planet Mars, the subsurface ocean of Europa, which is one of Jupiter's Galilean moons, and maybe the warm interior of Saturn's satellite Enceladus. I swear I looked up how to pronounce that one, but if I butchered it, I blame the headache I've had all day. Mars is pretty popular for theories of Martians, be it previous beings who lived there or current elusive populations. The discovery of Martian bacteria, either extant or extinct, would immediately tell astrobiologists that life is extremely common in the universe. So far, however, nothing has been found, although there's plenty of evidence that Mars was warmer and wetter in its distant past. Casting their wets a little bit wider, astronomers are just starting to sniff out the atmosphere of exoplanets, which is a whole other can of worms. I only just learned about them this year, and that's a whole other video. But an exoplanet or extrasolar planet is a planet outside of the solar system. The first possible evidence of an exoplanet was noted in 1917, but was not recognized as such, making the first confirmation of detection happening officially in 1992. A different planet, initially detected in 1988, was confirmed in 2003. As you know, of the time of my chattering today, there are 5,484 confirmed exoplanets in 4,047 planetary systems, with 875 systems having more than one planet. Not to overstate the obvious, but that's a lot. And I'm pretty sure that's without counting the planets that have been swallowed by black holes. If a planet's atmosphere turns out to contain substantial quantities of oxygen and methane, it's almost certain it must have living organisms on its surface. On Earth, it took billions of years for life to evolve from single cellular organisms to anything bigger than the itty-bitty Annabelle doll that was on my desk. Looking for microbial life may therefore give us the best chance of success. On the other hand, that restricts the search to planetary systems in our immediate neighborhood. That's why some researchers are trying to eavesdrop on the radio communications of alien civilizations. If they exist, they could be picked up from the other side of the Milky Way. But that assumes that the biological evolution of life necessarily leads to intelligence and technology. For now, no matter how likely the existence of extraterrestrial life seems, it is still technically an unproven hypothesis. I doubt how much longer though, with how many whistleblowers and informants coming forward. Number 4, the Big Bang Theory. Alrighty, I'll allow a single moment for everyone to mentally let the Bare Naked Ladies theme song from the popular sitcom run through their head. And moment over. The theory is the leading explanation for how the universe began. I think the easiest way to explain it is that it says the universe as we know it started with an infinitely hot and dense single point that inflated and stretched, first at unimaginable speeds and then at a more measurable rate over the next 13.7 billion years to the still expanding cosmos that we know today. Existing technology doesn't yet allow astronomers to literally peer back at the universe's birth, meaning much of what we understand about the Big Bang comes from mathematical formulas and models. If you want to look up the formulas, that's entirely up to you. I'm not even going to try to break those down, because knowing me, I'd get lost partway through and I'd be finding my way back for the rest of today's video. But after all that, it's still only a theory. To find out the cause of the Big Bang, you assume a prior event that apparently had a universe-spawning effect. Perhaps the Big Bang not only amounted to the creation of matter and energy, but also the origin of space and time itself. In that case, it's difficult to talk about a logical cause. This is heavy philosophical stuff, so it's hardly surprising that cosmologists have tried to circumvent the spontaneous creation of a universe out of nothing. Until recently, some scientists held the view that the universe would someday recollapse, eventually leading to another bang. But we've since learned that the current expansion of the universe will probably never stop, so that idea went away. Instead, some physicists suggest that the Big Bang was caused by our empty four-dimensional space-time colliding with another universe that floats next to ours in a higher dimensional bulk space. Experts still don't have a singular reason as to what caused the bang, if it's even true, so feel free to debate your take on the theory and what you believe in the comments. In third place, we have life on Venus. So back in the 1970s and 1980s, the Soviet Union sent several uncrewed missions to study the planet Venus. 10 of these Venera probes landed on the surface of the planet and were able to transmit data and images for a few minutes before succumbing to the planet's extreme atmosphere. In 2012, the Russian news service RIA Novosti reported that Leonid, I cannot say his last name but it starts with a K, a scientist who worked on the Venera missions, suggested that the photographs showed living objects moving around on the planet's surface. According to Leonid, certain objects resembled a disk, a black flap, and a scorpion, which emerge, fluctuate, and disappear, referring to their changing location on photographs and traces on the ground. The editors of Solar System Research published an editorial comment in a number of commentary articles from other scientists in their September of 2012 publication of Issue 5, Volume 46 of the journal, to be specific. The issue also includes a second article from Leonid, in which he claims to identify several other life forms and speculates regarding the apparent rich diversity of life around the landing site. It's a lot more rare to get alien spottings from folks outside of the US, and I feel like NASA is just out there covering them up, so I'm glad this one made it to the interwebs, even though folks have tried to explain it away. In second place, we have a government whistleblower. Alrighty. Before I get into it, I'd like to elaborate on how credible this story is. So, the whistleblower in question, David Charles Grush, is a veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or NGA, and the National Reconnaissance Office, NRO for short, where he served as a representative to the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force from 2019 to 2021. From late 2021 to July of 2022, he was the NGA co-lead for UAP analysis and its representative to the task force led by the Department of the Navy, under the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. Whew. At the NGO, David served as a Senior Intelligence Capabilities Integration Officer, cleared at the Top Secret Compartment Information level. From 2016 to 2021, he served with the National Reconnaissance Office as Senior Intelligence Officer and led the production of the NRO Director's Daily Briefing. He was a GS-15 civilian, the military equivalent of a colonel, and has numerous awards and decorations for his participation in covert and clandestine operations to advance American security. I don't know about y'all, but I think this is our most credible witness yet. So David said the recoveries of partial fragments through and up to intact vehicles have been made for decades through present day by the government, its allies, and defense contractors. He said that craft recovery operations are ongoing at various levels of activity, and that individuals on these UAP programs have approached him in his official capacity and disclosed their concerns regarding a multitude of wrongdoings, such as illegal contracting against the federal acquisitions regulations, and other criminality and the suppression of information across a qualified industrial base and academia. Associates who vouched for David said his information was highly sensitive, providing evidence that materials from objects of non-human origin are in the possession of highly secret black government programs. Wow. Multiple government witnesses to boot. Although locations, program names, and other specific data remain classified, the Inspector General and Intelligence Committee staff were provided with these details. Analysis has determined that the objects retrieved are of non-human origin based on the vehicle morphologies and material science testing and the possession of unique atomic arrangements and radiological signatures. The investigation was centered on extensive interviews with high-level intelligence officials, some of whom are directly involved with the program, and they corroborated his information. David is certain that the information has been illegally withheld from Congress to intentionally thwart legitimate congressional oversight of the UAP program. He has also filed a complaint alleging that he suffered illegal retaliation for his confidential disclosures. In his statements, David claimed that UFO legacy programs have, long been concealed within multiple agencies, nesting UAP activities in conventional secret access programs, without appropriate reporting to various oversight authorities. According to the unclassified complaint, in July of 2021, he had confidentially provided classified information to the Department of Defense Inspector General concerning the withholding of UAP-related information from Congress. Christopher Mellon, who spent nearly 20 years in the U.S. intelligence community and served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, has worked with Congress for years on unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP for short. He has mentioned that a number of well-placed current and former officials have shared detailed information with him, including the location where a craft was abandoned and recovered. He claims the reason more folks haven't come forward is due to a lack of trust in the leadership of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, established by Congress. The assumption that the United States alone has bullied the other nations into maintaining the secrecy for nearly a century continues to uphold as the primary consensus amongst the public at large. So you're telling me that credible US government officials have been adamant that the government is hiding things? Sounds right to me. In first place, we have Viking lander aliens. A woman who claims to be a former NASA employee claims to have seen evidence of the most monumental cover-up in space history back in 1979, when she saw two human figures in spacesuits walk calmly towards the Viking lander across the Martian surface. Going by Jackie, she claimed to have been working for NASA, handling downlink telemetry from the lander, which was the first vehicle to send back images of Mars' surface, when she saw 2 people walking on the surface. She and 6 colleagues were watching the Viking rover, bustling about all over various screens when she spotted 2 men in spacesuits, which were not the bulky suits that they normally used at the time, but looked safe. They came over the horizon, walking, right to the Viking Explorer. Naturally, some folks have claimed that the humans may have just been there to polish the lander's solar panels, but that seems a little odd, considering if there were, just humans there, they could have just filled the lander with petrol instead, or take the photographs themselves. Jackie claims that while the folks were maintaining the equipment, their video feed was suddenly cut off without explanation, and when they rushed upstairs for answers, the door leading to the room controlling the equipment was locked, with paper taped over every crevice to avoid anything being seen. Hello? Suspicious red flag alert. If you don't understand how scary cover-ups are and why this is ranked so highly, then I worry about how blasé you are. Other theorists claim there were secret landings on Mars in the 60s, and the Apollo landings were actually a cover-up for wider exploration of the solar system. Former CIA pilot John Lear claims that NASA landed on Mars in 1966, and that humans adapted to breathe the thin Martian atmosphere. Nigel Watson, author of the Haynes UFO Investigations Manual, said that these accounts of secret space missions seem to be growing in number, and remind him of the infamous Project Serpo. Yep, I'll sidetrack. In November of 2005, a contact called Anonymous, who said they worked for the US Defense Intelligence Agency, started sending information about an extraordinary alien exchange program called Project Serpo. Basing his claims on a 3,000-page document written in the late 1970s, he boldly claimed that 6 aliens were recovered from the Roswell crash. Claims that aliens living and or dead were recovered from the Roswell crash are nothing new, but in this case it was stated that an alien survivor from the crash, called EBE-1, helped to organize 12 specially trained people to visit his home planet, Serpo, in the Zeta Reticuli solar system. This mission occurred in 1965 and they remained there until 1978. During their stay, 2 of them died, 2 remained on the planet, and the rest, after returning to Earth, have died because of the high levels of radiation they were exposed to. I'm just saying, NASA has admitted that there are many things out there that we do not know about, and that UFOs are indeed real. So, what other secrets are they hiding? I swear between them and the US government, I wish I could file a million Freedom of Information pieces. So why does NASA refuse to visit Mars? For starters, we don't know if our bodies are going to survive. The time it takes for humans to reach Mars is 9 months. And as of today, no one's been able to recreate Earth's gravity in space. The common image of astronauts flying in the International Space Station might be cool to imagine, but in reality, a microgravity environment can be detrimental to our bodies. The weightlessness makes everything effortless to do. Imagine lifting like a super heavy box as easily as holding a feather. So cool, right? Well, not using any force has massive consequences. Your muscles can atrophy, your heart weakens, your bone structure crumbles. In a nutshell, you're gonna not do so hot. For the moment, we've managed to study the effect of microgravity on the body of astronauts of the International Space Station and managed to slow them down, but they're only in space for 6 months at a time. The 9 months we need to go to Mars, plus the time spent there with only a third of Earth's gravity, might be too long to slow down the effects, and some can become irreversible and lead to premature death. One of the main issues discussed at NASA is the possible psychological issue of such a mission, by the way. Living in closed spaces, traveling in deep space, not being able to see or communicate easily with Earth for such an amount of time, not gonna do so hot on the mental health. As of today, nobody has left our planet as far as to not see it anymore, so it's hard to imagine how this would play on our astronauts' capabilities of handling pressure and risk. We don't want to sentence anyone to a death sentence. Not good. So what happens if something goes sideways and more help is needed? Well, so here's the thing. The biggest challenge to go to the red planet is the time duration to go there and come back. The window for launch to Mars from Earth only happens like every 2 years and every 2 months, which means astronauts leaving in 2024 won't be able to, let me do the math, get help before 2026 when the next launch window opens, and help gets there after the 9 months journey. This time window makes it even harder by creating a mission of a very long duration, which can cause tremendous physiological and psychological issues on our astronauts. An interplanetary mission of that scale would likely be one of the most expensive and difficult engineering challenges of the 21st century. NASA's director of the ISS, Sam, said, "Mars is pretty far away. It's 6 orders of magnitude farther than the space station. We would need to develop new ways to live away from Earth, and that's never been done before. Ever. Mars's atmosphere is only 1% as dense as Earth, and contrary to our dear home, our neighbor doesn't have a radiation belt to protect us from solar and cosmic rays. The consequence of this lack of protection is a longer exposure to these rays, which are deadly to the human body. Astronauts living on Mars would be subject to 50 times more radiation than humans living on Earth. That amount of radiation can create very dangerous cancers. Because Mars' atmosphere is so thin, it doesn't allow the correct pressure for our lungs to breathe in the oxygen that we need. Also, it almost doesn't contain any oxygen oxygen, not nearly enough for us to breathe normally, which forces humans to recreate a living environment indoors and only go outside with pressurized suits. Not the easiest and not a great way to live. It's not sustainable, like we still haven't figured out how to grow food in space. Astronauts in the ISS aren't able to grow a sufficient amount of food to sustain themselves with, even if experiments are taking place. Everything they eat comes from Earth in a dehydrated or otherwise form. If a mission to Mars takes place, astronauts won't be able to carry with them the amount of food needed for such a long mission, so they need to learn to grow their own food. If this is already hard in the spaceship in a microgravity environment, it's even harder on the surface of Mars. Its soil needs decontamination to be used to grow plants, and we're not even 100% positive that's going to work. Also, there's still something we haven't talked about, and that's how we're going to create energy on the surface of Mars, because it's a lot harder than Earth. Mars is further away from the sun, so solar power is only 40% as effective as on Earth, and can even be lower in cases of dust storms. Wind power isn't useful because there's no atmosphere, and geothermal energy isn't going to work. Mars is a lot colder than Earth. In order to stay alive in space, people need lots of other things. We're talking like other than food. Oxygen, mentioned that before. Shelter. Fuel! Somewhere around 80% of the initial mass launched to space for a human Mars mission is going to be propellant. But storing that amount of fuel is hard. Objects in low Earth orbit, so that's where you'd park your Mars spaceship while you build it, travel around the world every 90 minutes. During half that time, they experience the intense heat of the sun and then the unheated blackness of space. That difference causes liquid hydrogen and oxygen, rocket fuel, to vaporize. So unless tanks are regularly vented, containers holding these materials are liable to explode. Hydrogen in particular is susceptible to leaking out of its tanks, resulting in a loss of about 4% per month. This means if a Mars mission required a year to assemble in low Earth orbit, it would lose more than half its propellant before even departing to the red planet. In 5th place, we have a 2014 secret mission in Africa. At the time, a NASA official confirmed that one of the agency's aircrafts had been spotted on an American military airstrip in eastern Africa, but like a series of US military officials, declined to say what the space agency's high-tech bird was doing there. Seriously, he gave the most legalese answer ever. Enjoy chuckling at this statement. I really can't give you any of the details. The airplane was there, you see it in the picture, but I really can't tell you what it was for. A big from me. Anyone else? The broad-winged white plane belonging to the agency was photographed by the satellite company Digital Globe, sitting next to some tilt-rotor aircraft at Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. A NASA website that tracks the agency's 3 WB-57s shows that one of its planes, number 926, was on a foreign deployment from July to November of that year. A NASA handbook for the WB-57 posted online lists 14 international deployment sites for the aircraft around the world, but the American base that we just mentioned isn't one of them. The Pentagon declined to answer any questions about a NASA aircraft in Djibouti, and a spokesperson for the Air Force Space Command, which has a closer relationship with NASA, said they wouldn't have operational knowledge of a mission on the continent. AFRICOM, the US military's Africa Command, would only say that aircraft from a variety of agencies and nations perform diverse missions from Camp Lemonnier in support of the US and allied military peace and security operations in the region, which spans East Africa and the Mideast. A NASA spokesperson said that their WB-57 aircraft does a lot of work with a variety of different customers from the government, from industry, academia, including the Defense Department. Totally not suspicious at all. According to NASA's website, the WB-57s have been flying research missions since the early 1970s and continue to be an asset to the scientific community, with professional, reliable, customer-oriented service designed to meet all scientific objectives. A government website devoted to the converted old planes describes a mission in Costa Rica to explore the tropical upper troposphere and lower stratosphere, and another to collect cosmic dust from comets and asteroids in the Earth's upper atmosphere, among many others. A variation of the aircraft was used to gather air samples from above-ground nuclear tests conducted by other countries. Sure, only other countries. The military may be interested in more than just scientific objectives, since a plane can fly nearly as high as the famed U-2 spy plane and carry more weight, including an array of high-tech imagery and communications equipment. One previous mission was described by the head of the military's fringe tech specialists at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency to the House Subcommittee on Intelligence as a kind of mass, three-dimensional terrain mapping. She said that a WB-57 was deployed to Afghanistan for a few months beginning late 2010 and collected over 70,000 square kilometers of terrain data, so information on about 10% of the country. This expert said she was confident the system could have mapped half the country. So a civilian who worked with the WB-57 program in Afghanistan and who asked not to be identified due to, reasons, told some folks that the plane is highly customizable, using sometimes one-off configurations depending on the objectives of the project. And for now, the military isn't saying any more. And whatever the mission was, it appears to be over. According to NASA, all 3 WB-57s are now back in the US, with their status listed as inactive. Let me know in the comments what y'all theories are as to why the plane was mysteriously in Africa. My guess, another Area 51 or Roswell incident that they wanted to keep covered up. In fourth place, the alligator problem. I don't really like talking about things that, off me with, alligators, crocodiles, sharks, and spiders being a few that make me skittish, but for the sake of information, you folks are worth it. The Kennedy Space Center is full of the scaly snappers. The center is located on Merritt Island, a small mass of land off of the east coast of Florida that isn't technically an island, but shh. Despite being the most famous landmark on the island, the NASA complex isn't the only thing there. There's the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, which is home to 1,000 species of plants and animals. They home a variety of sea turtles, manatees, bobcats, bald eagles, and more. Oh, and we can't forget about the gators. So maybe one of the reasons why the space shuttle program was canceled was because people didn't want to have to keep, clearing alligators off the runway every time a shuttle came into land. Honest to goodness. NASA has the ability to restrict human access to the site should they need it, but how do you go about telling a man-eating reptile what to do? According to the agency, interactions between their staff and the gators is rare, but that's exactly what they would say. Next thing you know, they'll have hijacked a rocket. Okay, no. That was one thing I was very glad I didn't see when I took a vacation to Florida earlier this year, and I'd like to keep it that way. Thank you very much.
Number 3 on this list is space snakes. Now, I'm gonna be honest guys, this one is just kind of silly, but I honestly just wanted to throw it in here because it really does make for a good story. And let's face it, if this story is actually true and it's all real, then I also would think twice about making another mission to space as well. Tanya Zero, he says, retired NASA astronaut Dr. Story Musgrave has a lot to his credit. So it would be difficult to pass this off as a lie, but he claims he saw an 8-foot-long white snake floating through space. It's not hard to imagine that this could have been a hose detached from the spaceship, but Musgrave, he remains adamant. So once again folks, I want to reiterate that this is a bit of a silly entry, but if we suspend our disbelief for just 1 second, then it gets pretty terrifying pretty quickly. If there is actually just a bunch of giant white snakes floating through space, then I don't know if there's actually a large enough sum of money that you could pay me to go and fly into that. Also, who knows what these things would even be capable of? Maybe they're super smart and we just have no idea. I, for one, do not want to be the person having to find that out. Number 2 on this list is Elon Musk. So I entitled this entry Elon Musk, but ultimately it's just billionaires in general at this point. For some reason, it's not enough for these guys with billions of dollars to just own some fancy cars and yachts. No, they need to have their own fancy rocket ships as well. And they've made it their mission to fly to space in some capacity and do it before all of the other billionaires do it. Well, guess what? This is good news for NASA. SpaceX was founded in 2002 by Elon Musk. Google says Space Exploration Technologies Corp. is an American spacecraft manufacturer, space launch provider, and a satellite communications corporation headquartered in Hawthorne, California. It was founded in 2002 by Elon Musk with the goal of reducing space transportation costs to enable the colonization of Mars. NASA is probably loving the sound of that last bit there. Reducing space transportation costs? At the end of the day, NASA's whole mission isn't to worry about costs and other things, it's research. They want to research space and learn more about it. If I'm NASA, then I'm looking over at Elon Musk and thinking that this guy might be a really nice guy to get close to. Let Elon Musk do all the work and fit the bill of going to space, and you can tag along for the ride and complete your mission of researching stuff along the way. If someone else is gonna do all the legwork for me, then it honestly just makes sense that I sit back and strap in for the ride. Billionaires, for whatever reason, have decided that they want to take the reins on this one, and I think NASA is happy to let them. And number 1 on this list is money. Even NASA, one of the richest organizations in the world and a group that is tackling problems such as space travel, runs into money problems. At the end of the day, our society is built on the back of the mighty dollar, and if you don't have enough of said dollars, then you're not going to be able to do what you want to do. Every time NASA launches a space shuttle to go into space, literally every single time, that is going to cost $450 million. That's just one space shuttle going on one single mission. Now, $450 million is a lot of money, but to a big corporation, that could be considered chump change if you think about it. McDonald's, for instance, is thought to spend over $1 billion every year on advertising in the United States alone. That's just on advertising, let alone all the money they spend on the actual product and labor and transportation and everything that goes into making their business run. However, McDonald's makes a lot of money off of those advertisements. They pump the money into silly commercials and we pump our money into poorly made burgers. This sort of business model doesn't really translate to space travel though. At the end of the day, $450 million is nothing if that $450 million is being spent on an operation that could bring in $1 billion, let's say. But in this case, that $450 million isn't being spent on that. That money is being spent and then they aren't getting any of it back. There aren't any McDonald's in space and there isn't any willing customers to spend money on stuff up there. In fact, there really isn't anything there at all. Throughout history, people go where the money is. Usually, it doesn't even matter how dangerous things are. Mining for oil or coal was extremely dangerous back in the early days, but there was a lot of money in it and therefore people did it. There just simply is not a lot of money currently to be found in space. If, for instance, someone discovered a rare and valuable mineral or rock that's sitting on the moon and it was something that people would pay lots of money for, then I guarantee NASA would be up and running and sending tons of space shuttles to the moon. I think maybe the thing that's so unsettling about this is that we could be missing out on tons of human progress, but money is holding us back. Like maybe there are some really important things to be learned in space that we could be learning about right now if money wasn't a factor. Hopefully somebody is ready to fork over the big bucks soon and we can get some people back up in the air.
HD 189773b. Seeing as most of these planets today are only referred to with scientific labels, to make my life easier, I've made the executive decision to give them nicknames. HD 189773b will now be referred to as Snow Globe, purely based on my personal need to see this environment recaptured in a globe. On October 6th of 2005, a team of astronomers announced the discovery of Snow Globe, which was detected using Doppler spectroscopy. Real-time radial velocity measurements detected the Rossiter-McLaughlin effect, caused by the planet passing in front of its star before photometric measurements confirmed that the planet was transiting. In 2006, a team led by Drake Deming announced the detection of strong infrared thermal emission from the transiting exoplanet by measuring the flux decrement, or decrease of total light during its prominent secondary eclipse, which is when the planet passes behind the star. The mass of the planet is estimated to be 16% larger than Jupiter's, with the planet completing an orbit around its host star every 2.2 days and an orbital speed of 152.5 kilometers per second. In 2008, a team of astrophysicists appeared to have detected and monitored the planet's visible light using polarimetry, and the result was confirmed and refined by the same team in 2011. They found that the planet albedo is significantly larger in blue light than in the red, most probably due to Rayleigh scattering and molecular absorption in the red. The blue color of the planet was confirmed in 2013, which would have made Snow Globe the first planet to have its overall color determined by two different techniques. These measurements in polarized light have since been disputed by two separate teams using more sensitive equipment, with upper limits of the signal provided therein. Bear with my pronunciation of the big words today, folks. I'm doing my very best. The blueness of the planet might have been a result of Rayleigh scattering. On July 11th of 2007, a team led by Giovanna Tonetti published the results of their observations using the Spitzer Space Telescope, concluding there is solid evidence for significant amounts of water vapor in the planet's atmosphere. Follow-up observations made using the Hubble Space Telescope confirmed the presence of water vapor, neutral oxygen, and also the organic compound methane. Later, very large telescope observations also detected the presence of carbon monoxide on the day side of the planet. It is currently unknown how the methane originated, as the planet's high 700 degrees Celsius temperature should cause the water and methane to react, replacing the atmosphere with carbon monoxide. Look, I get irritable when the weather reaches the 20s here on Earth, so I know I wouldn't survive that oven at all. Nevertheless, the presence of roughly 0.004% of water vapor fraction by volume in the atmosphere of Snow Globe was confirmed with high-resolution emission spectra taken in 2021. I'm sure after all that fascinating information dumping, somebody out there is asking, okay Alexa, Why should this planet not exist? Well, here's the thing. The weather on Snow Globe is kinda deadly. The winds, made up of silicate particles, blow up to 8,700 kilometers per hour, and observations have found evidence that it rains molten glass horizontally. I'm trying to imagine sideways glass raining down, and I'm drawing a bunch of scary blanks. Personally speaking, that sounds cool to watch from a very safe distance, ergo the nickname, but not up close anytime soon. It also messes with everything I know about physics, which admittedly isn't a whole lot, but still. Alrighty, next up, TRES-2b was discovered on August 21st of 2006 by the Transatlantic Exoplanet Survey by detecting the transit of the planet across its parent star. The discovery was confirmed by the WM Keck Observatory on September 8th of 06 by measuring the radial velocity of the star that hosts TRES-2b. Alrighty, nickname time. I'm thinking midnight. The planet was identified in 2011 as the darkest known exoplanet, reflecting less than 1% of any light that hits it, and is located 750 light years away from the solar system. I'm talking like worse than charcoal or the Vanablack 3.0 paint in terms of reflection on the surface of midnight. Look, I recently dealt with a not so fun power outage. I don't particularly want to imagine living in a place where the darkness just sort of swallows everything up. My mental health can't take that. The planet's mass and radius indicate that it is a gas giant with a bulk composition similar to that of Jupiter. Unlike Jupiter, but similar to many planets detected around other stars, Midnight is located very close to its star and belongs to the class of planets known as hot Jupiters. This system was within the field view of the Kepler spacecraft, and it continues to be studied by other projects, and the parameters are continuously improving. A 2007 study improved stellar and planetary parameters, whereas a 2008 study concluded that the system is a binary star system. This significantly affects the values for the stellar and planetary parameters, because nobody really knows why the planet is so dark. One reason could be an absence of reflective clouds, such as those which make Jupiter so bright, due to Midnight's proximity to its parent star and, the high temperature. Another reason could be the presence in the atmosphere of light-absorbing chemicals, such as vaporized sodium, potassium, or gaseous titanium oxide. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. How about we move on and explore WASP-12? Okay, I'm sure you all get the drill by now. I'm thinking. I'm sure you can see the steam pouring out of the top of my head. Oh, I got it. Firefly. And no, that's not intentionally a reference to one of my favorite shows, but make of that what you will. Firefly is a hot Jupiter and was discovered on April 1st by the Super WASP Planetary Transit Survey. Yeah, a lot of folks originally thought it was a joke, but I assure you, it is not. Hot Jupiters, or hot Saturns, are a class of gas giant exoplanets that are inferred to be physically similar to Jupiter, but that have very short orbital periods. The close proximity to their stars and high surface atmosphere temperatures resulted in their informal name, aka hot Jupiters. Firefly is the hottest planet ever found at a sizzling 2,250 degrees Celsius, which is as hot as some stars. This find could challenge models of how close planets can cozy up to their host stars. Firefly takes only a little over 1 Earth day to orbit its star, in contrast to about 365.25 days for Earth to orbit the Sun. Consequently, it has one of the lowest densities for exoplanets, which is inflated by the flux of energy from said star. On December 3rd of 2013, scientists working with the Hubble Space Telescope reported detecting water in the atmosphere of the exoplanet. In September of 2017, researchers working on the HST announced that Firefly reflects just 6% of the light that shines on its surface. As a result, the exoplanet has been described as black as asphalt and pitch black. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I just know it. Oh, right. This planet will be destroyed by its parent star in 10 million years. The star is so hot that it is tearing apart the planet's atmosphere, and the extreme gravity causes giant tidal forces that are stretching the planet into the shape of an A. Temperature on this planet is about 2,210 degrees Celsius, which is insane. I can't even survive 35 degrees without melting. Out of everything I've listed today, this is probably what's most likely to land me on some sort of a watch list. Hey NASA, if y'all actually release the info you hoard on aliens coming to Earth and what you've discovered, people wouldn't demand it so much. Yes. How could I do today without talking about the WOW signal? On August 15th of 1977, astronomer Jerry Ammon detected a powerful, brief, and unique radio signal using the Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope. He was so impressed by the result that he circled on the computer printout the reading of the signal's intensity, which was 6EQUJ5, and wrote the comment "wow" beside it, leading to the widely used name. The entire signal sequence lasted for the full 72-second window during which Big Ear was able to observe it, but has not been detected since, despite several subsequent attempts by the team, and well, a lot of other folks. Now, the string 6EQUJ5, commonly misinterpreted as a message encoded in the radio signal, represents in fact the signal's intensity variation over time, expressed in the particular measuring system adopted for the experiment. The signal itself appeared to be an unmodulated continuous wave, although any modulation with a period of less than 10 seconds or longer than 72 seconds would not have been detectable. The signal intensity was measured as signal-to-noise ratio, with the noise or baseline averaged over the previous few minutes. The signal was sampled for 10 seconds and then processed by the computer, which took 2 seconds. We love math. It was tightly constrained to a narrow band of radio frequencies, something nature doesn't usually do. It also wasn't broadcast from Earth or a passing satellite, like it was something else, something special. It appeared to come from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, so if there are any horoscope girlies watching, please let me know in the comments what that means. A lot of folks, including John Krause, the director of Big Ear, have suggested that the WOW signal could be a potential sign of extraterrestrial intelligence, as the signal's characteristics were so unlike what we typically observe. Don't worry, I'll save my usual alien theories for another day. We'd run out of time if I went in depth today. Trust me. And ever since, people have been hunting for its origins. Astronomers conducted a focused search for a sun-like star that was considered a plausible source for the signal, but turned out it didn't fit the criteria. And once again, we're still waiting on that answer. Is it ever gonna happen? Probably not. Look, I know this is an obvious one, but black holes are the ultimate space conundrum. Think of an object so dense that no light can escape its gravitational pull. Now make it millions to billions of times more massive than our sun. Yeah, that's what a supermassive black hole is. So how do massive things like this form? Well, we don't actually know for sure. NASA might have some theories, but since these behemoths literally birth galaxies, nobody knows. There are some popular theories floating out and about out there, so let's dissect them. The first theory is that, like their smaller stellar mass siblings, supermassive black holes might be formed from the gravitational collapse of a celestial object. So in this case, it might be a massive gas cloud in the early stages of galaxy formation, like how a star forms, but on a vastly larger scale. Another theory suggests that a regular stellar black hole could, eat surrounding material over millions of years, gradually growing in size until it reaches supermassive status. A similar theory is that when a cluster of stellar black holes collide, all their mass coalesces into one supermassive black hole. Whatever the case, most astronomers concur that once formed, these supermassive black holes drive the activity of galaxies. But at the end of the day, that's just a hypotenuse, which is a really fancy way to say scientific guessing game. Until something crazy changes in the world, we shall never know for sure.